and what they want lawmakers to accomplish for you before the session is over. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on The Real Story. I'm Jen Bernstein. We've been talking about the legislative session, and while there's a lot of steps that get a bill to become a law, the first step is happening right now: committee meetings. Now, nothing becomes a law in Connecticut without first going through the committee process and getting public comment. But how can you be part of the process if you don't know what proposals are being made? Well, we want to help inform you here. So every week, we're going to be sitting down with a committee to deep dive into what they're working on and, most of all, how it could affect you. Fox 61's political reporter Emma Wolfhorst is covering these committees closely every day, and now she's introducing us to the committee that we'll be sitting down with today. Emma.
The legislative session is now underway here, and proposed bills are in committees for review before you get the chance to weigh in. A big topic this year: energy prices. Both sides of the aisle agree something needs to be done, but differ on exact solutions. Now, both parties have introduced their own plans to lower utility costs for residents. Today, we have ranking members from the Energy and Technology Committee to talk more about their proposals. Jen?
Emma, thank you very much. And we want to meet our guests right now. Democratic Senator Norm Needleman and Republican Senator Ryan Fazio, both members of the Energy and Technology Committee. Thank you both so much for coming over here and talking about the work you're doing right now.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Okay, good morning. Yes. So we know you're busy at the Capitol. The session has started for 2023. Let's go to what both of your parties are doing to address these really high energy costs that we're seeing in Connecticut. Senator Needleman, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think as chair, I've been chair of the committee for 4 years. This is the most extraordinary year that we've ever seen in terms of cost. There were circumstances that led to extraordinarily high standard service rates, and I think one of the things that we did is we looked at ways to mitigate some of that for the ratepayers in the state by providing additional relief. In addition to that, we're looking at the circumstances that led to that anomalous rate increase. Obviously, the rates adjust every 6 months, and we have a January through June 30th period where the rates are very high for standard service. Although consumers have options to switch to other suppliers, we want to make sure that this situation in the standard service rate does not happen again.
Now, you've been chair, as you just said, for 4 years. Would you say that this is the year that the energy cost problem is most dire?
I think that for a lot of reasons: high inflation, high cost of gasoline, although it has come down a bit, high cost of heating oil, although that has come down a bit. Thankfully, the energy costs are going to have a dire impact on some people.
Senator Fazio, what do you think your party actually presented a proposal to? Talk about that.
Yes, well, obviously this is top of mind for residents all across Connecticut. It's something that's hurting everybody. And this winter's rise in costs is really a killer for families. But Connecticut's electricity costs have been too high for too long. And so we want to be constructive, bipartisan, work across the aisle in order to find the best solutions. We released some ideas just this week in order to start down that road. First and foremost, we do want to see costs come down, not just in the short run, which means both relief and maybe some other policy tweaks, but also in the long run, which means that we're encouraging reliable generation of affordable power in the state and in the region. We also want to see strong oversight of our electric utilities to ensure that ratepayers, consumers are protected in the most effective way possible. Finally, we also want to encourage at an administration level, at a national level, regional and national solutions to ensure that we have the right infrastructure in place to deliver energy to our state, whether that's transmission lines or it's shipping or it's pipelines. We need an all of the above approach. We need to look at everything, and we need to be as bipartisan as possible.
Okay. Senator Needleman, you were just kind of touching on this before, but PURA, with these rate increases, I mean, people are really upset about it. And what's really interesting is it doesn't seem like the legislature can really do much about it right now. Explain that to people.
So the supply, since we deregulated the utilities in the late 1990s, we've broken out supply and distribution of energy. And the supply of energy is a commodity. It's available through third-party suppliers. We mandated, I guess, in the 90s, because I wasn't involved in the legislature, that the utilities offer a standard service rate option, so people could buy their power through the utilities. But PURA has very little oversight over the actual generation cost that people are paying right now. I do want to say, with regard to the cost structure of electricity in general, Connecticut has done tremendous work in this area. And even though our absolute rate is not as low as some other states, the cost of energy for a household is actually pretty fair and pretty low relative to other states, because we made massive investments in energy efficiency and incentivizing things that, one, make energy more affordable to the homeowner, and at the same time help us move towards our pretty aggressive climate change goals.
Sure. Senator Fazio, discuss with us the rate increases. Do you feel like it's justified when you're looking at the data and what's out there, the information we have?
Well, that's why we need a strong regulator, the people who are professionals, who actually check the utilities, who make sure that everything is in order, that ratepayers are treated fairly. And that's why some of the legislation that we're going to explore as a committee is related to strong oversight, improving oversight, especially with regard to PURA. That's not necessarily something that the legislators are entirely equipped to do. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure our policy broadly leads to affordability in the short run, in the long run. That means relief in the short run, which we dealt with in our special session. Yep. It also means that the policy structure, the cost structure for the state, to the extent we can control it, encourages reliable, affordable generation while also maintaining certain environmental standards. It's not an easy problem, but it's a problem that we need to address to the greatest extent possible in the short run, but especially in the medium and long run.
Senator Needleman, do you think that that's something that you all will look at as Democrats, since you are the party in charge right now, is trying to strengthen PURA's ability to really look at why these rate increases are happening?
I do believe that they're looking at that now, but again, the purchase of standard service electric rates is something that they review to make sure that the buying plan that's been in place for a couple of decades, with some minor tweaks over those decades, has been followed. Okay. Assuming that it's been followed properly, I think that the next step is to look at that purchasing plan for standard service and see if there's anything we can do to tweak that going forward to make sure that this volatility does not happen again, because we've never seen this before. This is a once in 20-year problem.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, there are some resources that you all have talked about that people can turn to, right? Because there is funding that's going to relief. Talk to us about that for people who are suffering out there.
So there's Operation Fuel, a lot of stuff for low-income people, low-income families. There's Energize Connecticut that provides some resources. Interestingly enough, I'm a municipal CEO, and I also believe that the state can't fix every problem. So we've, in my town, in Essex, we've added more funds to the energy, the energy fund that people turn to when they can't afford to pay their bills. I also believe strongly in neighbor helping neighbor, and we have an extraordinary circumstance. It's all hands on deck. The state is looking at solutions in the short, medium, and long term, but the municipalities, maybe with ARPA funds, maybe with their own, heating funds, provide some relief to some of the ratepayers in the state that are at least able to manage these bills.
Sure. Senator Fazio, what's your take on, obviously we have these energy assistance programs in place for a reason, right? But can they keep up if these costs keep going up like they did this year? Yeah, is that a concern?
Yes, absolutely. It's a concern because relief is a short-term solution. We also need long-term solutions. We need to address underlying costs. There's some extent to which the state cannot do that. We're downstream from the energy pipeline, so to speak. But we can also look at our neighboring states like Rhode Island, who are even further down the pipeline with theoretically higher costs of delivering electricity and resources, and yet they have lower electricity costs. So we should be willing to put everything on the table in terms of state policy policy in order to reduce the cost curve, because it's not just a matter of people affording their electricity to keep the lights on. It's also a matter of building an economy, ensuring that we have a manufacturing base in the state. Connecticut historically was always a hub for high-tech manufacturing, and that's extraordinarily difficult with very high input costs. Connecticut's lost more manufacturing jobs than the nation writ large over the past 20 years, and high input costs like energy is going to be partially responsible for that sort of thing. So energy touches a lot of things. There's naturally going to be limits on what we can do, but we're going to work hard and in a bipartisan fashion in order to ensure that we can reduce the cost to the most we can.
Senator Needleman, what about the big budget surplus that we have, or the rainy day fund? Should this be used to help during this once in every 20-year rate increase, as you were saying?
So I think there are statutory obligations within the budget that require pay down of pensions, which provide for long-term reductions in expenses. And I do believe that the governor and the administration in general are looking at all solutions here. We did put more money into it. We actually discussed the possibility of adding some help by the utilities, and they both stepped up to provide some additional money to Operation Fuel and to other fuel relief programs. One of the other bills, which we are looking at, by the way, is the shut-off moratorium that the utilities have in place for the winter. I think that we need to look closely at the payment plan options that come after that, and maybe extending that a little while until people can sort of feel the ground underneath them and see what the impact is, to make sure that come April no one loses their electricity because of this particular time. So, in general, surpluses, there are statutory requirements, and what we do with them is sort of dictated by the statutes. If there was a way to provide some extra relief, and we can figure out a mechanism to do that, who do we want to help? Because it's not only the lowest of the low-income people, it's the middle-income people that are really feeling the pinch here, and we want to make sure that that help gets across the board. And in Essex, for example, I've told my social service director to actually widen the pool of people that have an option to reach out and get some help.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's hard, right? Because our surplus, or I keep saying surplus, but the rainy day fund, everyone wants a piece of that right now, right? Because there's all the different aspects that could use help, and there's only so much to go around. Do you think that the rainy day fund should be used to offset high energy costs in our state?
Well, we're using part of our budget position, budget surplus, in order to finance relief. I think the governor is also correct that we need to look at broad-based middle-class tax relief as a state in order to both make the state more affordable and also to grow our economy in the long run. Connecticut's economy has not seen the growth that is necessary in order to create prosperity and security for the middle class and mobility for the working class in this state. So again, on a bipartisan note, I think that coming together in this current fiscal state in order to ensure that we have middle-class tax relief, income tax relief in particular, to make the state affordable and grow economically is a vital top priority, and something that I appreciate the governor's comments on as well.
Sure. And I'm sure we'll have to see with Democrats where they want the tax cuts. It's always about the cutoff, right? Who's impacted and who is helped by that. I want to talk about this because this is interesting. Your Republican plan talks about something called decoupling, which has to do with the incentives that the utility companies get for investing in energy efficiency, and it sounds like you all kind of want to move away from that. Explain that.
Yeah, well, we definitely don't want to move away from energy efficiency in this regard. We want to give the utilities credit for ensuring conservation and energy efficiency. We also want to make sure that there's incentive in order for them to harden the grid to make sure that distribution is reliable, and give PURA in particular the flexibility in order to promote that. So, there should not be credit if we have lower volumes because of outages. It should be because of conservation and efficiency. And the premise is just to give PURA greater flexibility in order to promote that.
Okay, Senator Needleman, any comment on that?
Sure. So 2 years ago, we passed Take Back Our Grid, which greatly empowered PURA after Storm Isaias. And we did a lot to give them more tools. And I think that they've worked, because I think that since then, the storms that we've had, I believe, as the first selectman, I see it on the ground. We've seen some pretty good response from them, better response. Not every municipality would agree with that, but I do believe that empowering PURA to tackle this more directly, to make sure that ratepayers get the most value for their money from the monopoly utilities that operate in the state of Connecticut, is really critical, and we've taken that head on. As far as the energy efficiency funds, there was some conversation about whether they should be attached to your bill or whether they should be part of the general fund. I fall on the side of the equation, believing that they are in the right place. Maybe a little more clarity on the bills so people see where they are. But they're kind of like a user fee based on what you use of electricity. And again, by tying it all together, they do provide some incentive for more efficiency where they are. And making them subject to the whims of the budget every year doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But we're open to talking about every issue and looking at all options. And I think Senator Fazio has talked about working in a bipartisan fashion. I'm the only remaining leader of the committee after 4 years, and there are 3 new people on the committee, and I think we've established a good working relationship where even as the majority, as in the past, we're willing to listen to all ideas and try to work towards common sense solutions that work in the interest of not only the residential ratepayers, but the businesses also. Truth be told, I own a manufacturing company, so the things that Senator Fazio was talking about are things I'm very familiar with.
Okay, interesting. Well, we thank you both for coming on the program so much and talking about the work that you all are doing. Senator Fazio, member of the Energy and Technology Committee, and Chair Senator Needleman of the Energy and Technology Committee. Thank you both very much for coming on and talking about your work.
Thanks for having us.
We look forward to having you both on again. All right, coming up on The Real Story, we are sitting down with community leaders advocating for towns and cities at our state capitol. The Connecticut Conference of Municipalities joins us to talk about what they hope legislators will prioritize and accomplish this session. Stay with us.